It's an interesting time for business. Tariff and trade policies are dynamic, supply chains are squeezed, and cash flow, it's tighter than ever. If your business can't adapt in real time, you are in a little bit of hurt. So how do you get full visibility and adapt in real time? Over 42,000 businesses trust NetSuite by Oracle, your AI-powered business management suite. It brings accounting, financial management, inventory, and HR all under one roof. NetSuite is the #1 cloud ERP for a reason. It's your single source of truth, giving you the data and control you need to move quickly. Real-time forecasting helps you move into the future with confidence, and with AI built in, you can automate the busy work and focus on strategy. NetSuite helps you see what's stuck, what it's costing you, and how to pivot fast. If I were running a business with a lot of moving parts, I'd use NetSuite for full control over everything. Tame the chaos with NetSuite. If your revenues are at least in the 7 figures, download the free ebook, Navigating Global Trade, 3 Insights for Leaders at netsuite.com/SPI. That's netsuite.com/SPI. You spent months building towards launch day, but when the clock hits 0, your site crashes. Bots swarm, and loyal fans rage on Reddit. That's not good. Fanfare was built to stop that. Fanfare is the drop platform made for high-pressure moments, stampede-proof infrastructure, verified waitlists, and bot filters that actually work. Instead of refunds and rage, you get retention and revenue. And that sounds great to me. Your next launch shouldn't be a gamble. Get Fanfare's 5-step hype drop playbook and learn how to bulletproof your drop at fanfare.io/playbook. Again, that's fanfare.io/playbook.
This is the part where we want to fast forward to, man, dude, just tell me how to book gigs. But if you don't have these other pieces in place first, it's really difficult to book gigs because you don't know who you're speaking to, what you speak about. You don't have any marketing assets. So sometimes the mistake speakers will make is going I got my website, I got my video, and now I just sit back and I wait for the phone to ring. I'm it just doesn't work like that. Nobody cares. If you build it, they will not come. And so at this point, we have to be much more proactive in identifying the types of events that we would be a good fit for, starting conversations with them, reaching out, following up, and just being intentional about it.
I haven't seen this man in years. And as soon as we started talking, it was as if we had never left each other. And no, I'm not talking about Chris Ducker, although we will have him on the show later in the year. I'm talking about another bald man. And bald is a part of his name, but I hope that doesn't offend them. But no, they wear it loud and proud. What am I saying? This is Grant Baldwin, who you might know from Speaker Lab. Grant and I have crossed paths several times. I've actually learned quite a bit from him in the world of speaking. He, in fact, helped me out specifically on one particular talk, and we were in a hotel room just a few hours before I was going to go on stage, and he really, really helped me out. And so if you're looking to understand how to get your first gig on stage, your first speaking opportunity, and perhaps your first paid speaking opportunity. Maybe you've been speaking quite a bit, but you just haven't been able to get paid for it yet. Grant's going to break it down for you. Grant over at thespeakerlab.com. Go ahead and check him out. And in fact, this episode was filmed in person. When I went to Tennessee for a mastermind meeting with other authors, I came in a little early so that I could have some time to meet with not just Chris Ducker, but Grant Baldwin. Also hung out with Jeff Rose while there. And Grant and I decided to book some time at a studio to swap podcast episodes, and I'm on his show, The Speaker Lab, and right now you're about to listen to him on mine. So here he is, Grant Baldwin from The Speaker Lab.
You're listening to the Smart Passive Income Podcast, a proud member of the Entrepreneur Podcast Network, a show that's all about working hard now so you can sit back and reap the benefits later. And now your host. He's eaten more broccoli in 2024 than he has in his whole life. Pat Flynn.
Grant Baldwin, welcome to the show.
Hey, man. This is fun. We're doing this in person.
In person. I want to do a lot more of these. I know we just did an episode on your show, The Speaker Lab, which was really fun, so everybody should go check that out. Grant was also a guest on episode 416, so half the episodes ago. It's been a long time.
You're at 800?
Over 800, yeah.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
One thing we learned from you in podcasting is we recently had our 500th episode, and in order to do a 500th episode, you can't just do it on your own. You got to bring in a guest host. And so we have one guy that is the known 500th guest host. We also use Shane Sams.
Oh, did you?
So shout out to Shane.
Shane, dude, he's
he
getting
did
passed
awesome.
around.
It was so
Shane
good.
is a great kind of co-host or stand-in host for sure.
Yeah,
and
he's
obviously
phenomenal.
he has a podcast too.
Indeed.
So podcasting is great, but so is speaking, which is what you're known for, and you've helped How many people have you helped land gigs now?
Thousands of speakers. So I was a full-time speaker for several years and was doing 60, 70 paid gigs a year. And when I got started as a speaker, I used to be a youth pastor, and then that gave me a lot of opportunities to speak. And speaking like a lot of people was something I really enjoyed. I wanted to do more of, but this was 18, 19 years ago. And I just didn't know, like, how do you find gigs and what do you speak about and who hires speakers? And there were no podcasts or courses or trainings or resources on this. So I was emailing speakers and stalking speakers and learned a couple things. And then after doing it for several years, I was doing 500, 600 paid gigs myself over several years. People were asking me the same questions of like, how do I do this? And how do I get paid? And what do I speak about? And so we started doing some coaching training around that. That really evolved into the Speaker Lab. So I don't know the exact count, but we've worked with a lot of speakers. Yeah.
A lot. When you say you were stalking speakers back in the day, who was it that you were stalking? And obviously not stalking,
yeah.
But like, who were you following and what were you learning from them?
A guy that was super helpful early on is, I think, a friend of yours as well, Josh Shipp, was super helpful because I was, as a former youth pastor, I wanted to do speaking in the youth space, and I wasn't just really sure what that looked like. And there weren't a ton of speakers who were doing that. And so I had emailed Josh, and he still does a ton of speaking, still
Rock
friends
the
with
stage,
him.
Right?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
So his first iteration of that, we were living in Missouri at the time, and he said, hey, I'm thinking about hosting a workshop, kind of a boot camp thing in Dallas, like this one-day deal. And he said it was going to be $1,000. And he may as well have said it's $1 billion because I just didn't have it. But I was like, I got to get to that event. I got to figure out how to be there. So I ended up going to the event, and there's probably a dozen people there or something, got to meet Josh. And that gave me a ton of confidence. Like one thing we were just talking about before in our podcast on the Speaker Lab is, you and I have been at this for a while. And so people may look at it and be like, oh, they have some special ability or talent or secret sauce that I don't have. And I think that, being in person at that type of event and meeting Josh was like, oh, like Josh is just a normal dude like me. And if he can figure this out, I can figure this out. And there's a playbook here and a formula. And I need to put in the work. Josh has put in the work. And so that was very like humanizing for me. And it just gave me a ton of confidence that like, I think I can do this.
I do want to get into how to land your first gig and how to create a signature talk, those kinds of things. But I want to hear from you, since you're the expert. What makes a great speaker a great speaker?
I think there's certainly like a subjective element to it, because it's kind of like what makes music great or what makes a movie great. There's one type of music or a movie that someone may love, and a different person may be like, it's just not my cup of tea,
Depends who you ask.
Yeah, so there's a certain subjective element, but there are a few things that I think are consistent across the board. One thing that any speaker can do is be really, really well prepared. So there's a difference between a speaker who's like, I'm just kind of charismatic and I'm just going to hop up on stage and kind of wing it and hopefully it all works out, right? But the difference is a speaker who says, no, I'm going to really think through what I'm communicating and what I'm saying. And this is part of what makes you a great speaker, is you really spend the time behind the scenes.
I feel like I over-prepare.
And it's possible to over-prepare to the point where all of a sudden it becomes fake. It doesn't become genuine, because at the end of the day, like, you are one human talking to a collection of other humans. So you need to act like a human. But if we said right now, hey, Pat, tell us about when you proposed to April. Like, you were there. You could probably tell us that story. But if we said, take an hour, go away, go in the other room here and write out of when you proposed to April, and then come back and tell us that story. You could probably just tell us a better story, right? The elements of it are going to be the same, right? If I'm thinking through the details of it and what did we say to each other and where were we and what were we wearing and who did we call and what were our emotions and what was the reaction and like all of that, it probably just makes for a better story. And so really spending the time behind the scenes to prepare, which is something that any speaker at any level can do. And so in a similar way of, if you look at like a great comedian, sometimes we just think like, oh, they're funny and they hop up on stage and tell jokes and it all just works out. It's like, not exactly. Like, there's so much thought and intentionality that happens behind the scenes that we don't see. So that by the time they get up on stage, it's like, oh, wow, they are really, really good. And it almost looks effortless, but it's because of the amount of work that went in behind the scenes that makes it look effortless. So that's something that like any speaker at any level can do in order to be great on stage.
I love that. I know comedians will often test their jokes in front of smaller stages or out in the world. How might a speaker test something before it ends up on a stage one day for them?
Yeah, so some of this depends on like the stakes of where you may be presenting. Okay, so on one end of the spectrum, you may have. We were talking about you just hosted an event that had 3,700 people, right?
Yeah.
So
Pokemon nerds.
yeah, if you're presenting at Card Party, then you probably aren't going to hop up and be like, "This is all new material, and I've never tried this before, and I hope it works." Right? You're probably going to be presenting some material that I'm a bit more confident that it works. Whereas maybe in this context, after this, you and I are going to dinner with a couple buddies, and so in that context, I may have like, I'm kind of kicking around this like idea or this story or this thought. And so I might throw out some things there, or in a podcast thing, or I'm recording a social media video or something, or I'm at a conversation with some colleagues at work, or whatever the situation or context may be, where it's a much lower stakes environment. And maybe this works and maybe this doesn't work, and maybe it'll never see the light of day. And so exactly what you're talking about, a comedian will they'll test different material in low stakes environment. So for example, I have a younger sister and she lives in Missouri. She happened to be in New York City last week and went to the Comedy Cellar, one of those little like tiny venues, and there's like 20, 30, 40 seats there. There's nobody there. And she said, you just went on a random night and Dave Attell happened to be there.
Oh, no way.
And goes up there and is just trying material. And some stuff may end up on a Netflix special someday. And some of it may never see the light of day. And in that type of low stakes environment, a comedian's just going to test stuff. And maybe this works and maybe this doesn't. But then by the time it gets to a Netflix or an HBO special or whatever it may be, that content is really well dialed in and polished. And the same thing can be true for a speaker. And so look for those type of opportunities where it's like, I'm just going to try this story or this idea and see if it resonates or see if it sticks.
Where might you even get ideas to test? What sparks inspiration for certain things that end up in your talk?
So some of it is just having your radar up, so there's certain things that may happen in life that may just be kind of a normal everyday thing that you don't really think of. But if you're just with your radar up going like, I'm just going to capture this, and maybe the type of thing where either you leave yourself an audio note, or I do a lot of notes on my phone where I'll just write something down and something grabbed my attention and I don't know if there is anything to it and there may be nothing to it, but I'm just capturing it. My radar's up and I'm kind of capturing this experience or this moment or this potential story. And at that point, I'm just kind of like, I'm carrying it around. And so again, I don't know if anything's going to come of it. And so I heard one time that things taste better that have been cooked in a crock pot versus things that have been cooked in a microwave. Things taste better that have been cooked in a crock pot versus a microwave. So when something happens and I'm just going to kind of carry it with me, I'm just marinating on it. I'm just letting it sit there. It's sitting in the crock pot. And maybe I overcook it. Maybe it becomes nothing. Or maybe you're like, I've got this talk coming up in 6 months, or I was looking for this illustration or this analogy or this metaphor for this thing. And that really stuck out to me and it grabbed me from something that happened a long time ago. So having your radar up just throughout life. And we kind of talked about comedians for a second there. How often is like a good comedian someone who's just kind of like pointing out everyday things and things that just happen in life? And how many of you have ever been in the grocery store and this happened? Or you've been traveling, you've been on a plane and this happened. And the audience is like, that's so true. I've had that happen to me. And it wasn't that something unusual happened. It's an everyday experience that they happen to notice. Like, have you ever thought about how when this happens, like this is weird or funny or interesting or whatever, but it's because their radar is up looking for those little things.
I like that. I think we often, when we see other speakers talk, especially well-known ones, they're talking about big things that have happened, like life-changing stories. I remember watching Brendan Burchard talk, and he talked about his life story and accidents that have happened. And people come up and they talk about recovering from cancer and these kinds of things. And it's like, wow, that is so inspirational. Like, you were an incredible speaker. I don't have a life-changing story like that, therefore I cannot talk on a stage or provide value. But you're saying that's not true. And I know this is not true because I build what I call a story bank, where I try to keep my radar up and pay attention to things that happen. And I like that analogy of having it marinate there for a while, because you don't often know where it may or may not fit in.
Yeah.
But when you can go back to that and look at it and remember those things, like I remember telling a story once on stage in a keynote about a time that Keone had asked to play iPad in the car, and we said no. And it was such a small moment, but I fine-tuned that because at the end of that story, he actually ended up getting the iPad because he understood who his audience was, me. He told me that I can play Minecraft, learn how to become a better builder, and teach you how to become a better architect.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, you made the connection of I told it in a much better, more dramatic kind of
Sure,
way,
sure.
but it really hit home. But it was just a little moment that I remembered a couple days later when I was building this presentation, and thankfully I had still remembered it, because so often these moments just pass us by and they're forgotten forever. Do you have a particular app or something that you use to capture those moments when they happen?
The methodology is, there's a lot of ways. It could be an audio note. I do that a lot. I also use just notes, just the built-in notes app on my phone. I used to use Evernote quite a bit. I know some people who will carry around, I got a buddy who carries like a little tiny like field notes notepad that just goes in his pocket, right? Whatever the method is fine, but just do something that you use consistently. I want to go back, if I could, just to something you mentioned where when you guys started speaking, that oftentimes we assume, we kind of look at someone who has some crazy life story. And oftentimes that's a big limiting belief for speakers, and thinking like, well, I have never had cancer. I've never won an Olympic medal. I've never climbed Mount Everest. I've never overcome some obstacle where someone would say like, oh, well, of course that person should be a speaker. I felt the same way. Like I'm a white male from the Midwest who came from a normal middle-class family. Like I've never broken a bone. Like there's nothing on paper.
You didn't grow up
that
on the streets?
No, nothing at all. There's no, what we would think would be a qualifying thing. So for example, a speaker buddy of mine I met early on, I saw him speak and we became friends. He had cancer as a child, had a leg amputated, and went on to become a one-legged downhill skier in the Paralympics. And I was just like, wow, that is really impressive. Like I haven't done that, right? Another example would be a mutual friend, Hal Elrod. Hal has faced death.
He died for 2 minutes.
Legitimately, like multiple times, and you're like, I don't have any story like that, So, but the point being is, as a speaker, your primary role and responsibility is to solve one specific problem for one specific audience. And so it doesn't matter if you have some crazy story, but if you're able to solve a problem for that audience, then that's ultimately what people are looking for and what event planners want to hire speakers for.
That's a great transition into, okay, if we want to speak, we know we have a blog or a podcast or a platform, YouTube channel, we have a book maybe coming out, we want to get on stages, we want to build more authority that way, we want to get into the green room with these other speakers and build relationships, but we've never done it before. Where do we begin? Are we building a signature talk based on a particular audience, then we go find those audiences that are at conferences, or do we pinpoint a particular conference, then dissect and reverse engineer who those people are so that we can then build something for them? Where do we even begin if we are now interested in getting on the speaker circuit, or even just a couple times a year trying to get on stage?
Yeah. So one of the things that we do inside the Speaker Lab is we teach this framework we call the Speaker Success Roadmap. So it makes this acronym SPEAK, S-P-E-A-K. And so maybe what we can do is we can just walk through real quick at a high level and kind of jump in wherever. So the S is select a problem to solve. Select a problem to solve. So 2 key questions that every speaker has to answer. And this isn't exclusive to speakers. This is true for just entrepreneurs in general. And so one is you got to be clear on who are you speaking to? And number 2 is what problem are you solving? And the danger here is we tend to want to go as big and broad and wide and vague. And so who do I speak to? I don't know, man. I speak to people. I speak to humans. I speak to everybody, right?
Help everybody.
My message is for the world. But that just doesn't work. The same thing is true with what problem do you solve? And it's kind of like, well, what do you speak about? Well, I don't know. What do you want me to speak about? We can talk about sales or marketing or leadership or family or Pokemon or on and on the list goes. Even if you know something about all those things, like you don't want to become this person that like, I speak about everything and nothing at the same time. And so we always use the analogy of like, you want to be the steakhouse and not the buffet. The steakhouse, not the buffet. Meaning, if you and I are going to dinner, or let's say we're going afterwards, we're going to get barbecue, right? And so we are going to a place that we asked the sound engineer here, and we said, hey, what's a good barbecue place? And he didn't say Golden Corral. He didn't say some buffet. He's like, no, here's the place you need to go. All they do is barbecue. So when we go to this place right after this, they're probably not going to serve tacos. They're probably not going to serve sushi. They're probably not going to serve enchiladas.
He even mentioned one that had specifically whole pigs. There was a very specific thing about that place.
All we do is barbecue. And so if you want any of those other things, if you want good sushi, you go down the street. If you're looking for a good steak, here's where you go. So we always say like, you want to be the barbecue place. You want to be the steakhouse and not the buffet. And the mistake, again, a lot of speakers and just entrepreneurs in general make is we try to just do it all. And so I help everybody with everything. And then you just become Golden Corral, and nobody's excited about going to a buffet,
I see commercials for Golden Corral every day
They're still
We don't
around.
even have them in our.
They're they're kicking. I'm
San
sure,
Diego.
hypothetically. And it's just counterintuitive because we think the more things we can speak about, the more problems we can solve, the more people we can speak to, the more opportunities we will have. And that's ultimately like not what people are looking for. So I'm spending an extra minute on this because it's like the most important foundational place is you got to be clear on who you speak to and what problem you solve. The P, we'll hit these others real quick. P is prepare your talk. Like be really clear on like what's the solution that you're providing and how are you providing that. So are you doing keynotes or workshops or breakouts or seminars? Are you doing 1 hour or full day or 5-day things? Are you doing in person? Are you doing virtual? Like how are you providing the solution to the problem that you're solving? The E is to establish yourself as the expert. So 2 key assets that every speaker needs is you need a website and a demo video. Website and demo video. So in this day and age, if you don't have a website, you don't exist. It's hard for people to take you seriously. It's important to have a website. And a demo video, I want you to think of this kind of like a movie trailer. So recently my wife and I went to see a movie, and before the movie starts, they are showing all the trailers. And when the trailers are playing, we're all doing the same thing. You know, we're all going like, oh man, I can't wait to see that. That's going to be awesome. That's going to be legit. We got to go see that. Or 2 seconds in, you're like, that's stupid. No chance we're going to see that, right? Because I don't need to see like a 10-minute thing to determine whether or not I want to see it or I'm interested. The goal of a movie trailer and the goal of a demo video is to make people want to see more. And so for an event planner, a decision maker, you've been on that side as an event planner, you are in the risk mitigation business. Because when you hire a speaker and you put them up on stage, on this type of stage, virtually or in person at one of your events, you're taking a risk. And I assume this person's going to do a good job. I assume that they're not going to embarrass me, that they're not going to say something inappropriate, that they're not going to say something controversial, that they're going to deliver good content and value. You're just taking a risk. And so that demo video gives some level of confidence that like, oh, I think this person could be a good fit for my event. So website, demo, video are important. The A, acquire paid speaking gigs. This is the part where we want to like fast forward to like, man, dude, just tell me how to book gigs. But if you don't have these other pieces in place first, it's really difficult to book gigs because you don't know who you're speaking to, what you speak about. You don't have any marketing assets. And at this point, it becomes much more proactive rather than reactive. So sometimes the mistake speakers will make is going like, I got my website, I got my video, and now I just sit back and I wait for the phone to ring. I'm like, it just doesn't work like that. Like just because you have a website, just because you have a video, just because you post something on social, nobody cares. Like if you build it, they will not come. And so at this point, we have to be much more proactive in identifying the types of events that we would be a good fit for, starting conversations with them, reaching out, following up, and just being intentional about it. And then the last part of the process, K, is know when to scale. Know when to scale, meaning a lot of people who are interested in speaking ultimately say, I have some type of message that I want to share. And speaking is a way, it's not the only way to go about doing that. And so as you alluded to, there are people who may say, I'm watching, listening, and like, I want to do 100 gigs a year. Like I want to be a full-time speaker. Or other people may be like, I want to do 5, you know? And it's not that one's better or worse. You and I have both done to varying degrees amounts of speaking. It just ultimately depends on like what you want to do and what makes sense to you. So for some people, they say, hey, I want to be a speaker, but I also want to do a course. I would love to do a podcast. I'd love to do consulting or coaching. I'd love to do a book, and speaking is just a part of that. So figuring out how does speaking fit into the mix there. So again, I know we covered a lot there, but that's kind of the high level of how do I actually book gigs and how does speaking fit into my world. That's the speaker success roadmap that we teach.
I love it. That's a great overview. With running your own business, legal questions always come with the territory. Like, can I use this contract or agreement? What do I do if a client doesn't pay? Am I even structured the right way for taxes? Instead of Googling your way through legal landmines, imagine having a law firm ready to address your business's legal needs without the sticker shock. That's what you get with Legal Shield's small business plans. Legal Shield helps entrepreneurs access real legal help on contract reviews, collection letters, business formation guidance, and even help navigating IRS audits. Members can schedule consultations, upload documents through the app, and get support from a provider law firm that knows small business laws in your state. Plus, consultations on taxes or trademarks help you stay ahead of potential problems. And if a client is late on a payment, Legal Shield steps in with professional collection letters so you can protect your hard-earned revenue, all for a fraction of the price of hiring a lawyer on your own. Go to LegalShield.com/SPI or call 833-570-9980 to learn more and get big business legal support without a big business budget. That's LegalShield.com/SPI. Hiring shouldn't be a hassle or a drain on your budget. Upwork is your one-stop shop to find, hire, and pay top freelance talent, saving you time and keeping costs in check all in one place. Companies at every stage turn to Upwork to get things done and find more flexibility in the way that they staff key projects and initiatives by assessing a global marketplace filled with top talent in IT, web development, AI, design, administration support, marketing, and more. And I've personally used them myself and can vouch for them. Posting a job on Upwork is easy. With no cost to join, you can register, browse freelancer profiles, get help drafting a job post, or even book a consultation. From there, you connect with freelancers that get you and can easily hire them to take your business to the next level. Upwork makes the entire process easier, simpler, and more affordable with industry-low fees. Post a job today and hire tomorrow with Upwork. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That is Upwork.com to post your job for free and connect with top talent ready to help your business grow. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com. Go there now. Let's pinpoint a few things, if you don't mind. After you've established yourself as an expert, which many of our listeners already have, they have a website already, but they don't yet have a demo video.
Yeah.
How might one create that if they have yet to be on stage to then create a video from? Because that's often what we see in demo videos are people on stage. But if you've never been on stage, chicken versus egg.
Chicken, egg, so absolutely. Yep.
Tell me about how to solve that problem.
Yeah, so there's a couple options here that you could do. One is that you can find some type of local event to speak at for free. And so my first demo video, I spoke to a friend's youth group at a local church. And there's 30, 40 teenagers in the room there. I borrowed a handy cam from a friend. I set it up on, like on the side of the room there on a tripod, like way back. I edited it myself using Windows Movie Maker. I don't even know if that's still a thing. The approach of just like, this is version 1.0. And so I think sometimes it's easy to like look at people's demo videos who have been at this for years and years and years, and they're like incredibly professionally polished, and you're just like, I don't have that. But that's okay. Like they didn't either when they got started. So fast forward to today, and I've had 6, 7, 8 different versions of demo videos. And so know that when you're making a version, and this applies to your website as well, it's version 1.0. Do it to the best of your ability, do it with excellence, and improve as you go. So one option is, again, you could speak at something for free locally. You know, that's certainly an option. Another option, this is going to sound weird, but this can work, is you could speak in an empty room. Now, if you're going to do this, you want to do this in the type of setting where someone would actually hire you to speak. Like nobody's hiring you to speak in your bedroom or your kitchen or your bathroom. So like, don't be like, here I am. And this, like, don't do that. But go to a theater, an auditorium, a banquet hall, a conference center, some type of setting where someone would actually hire you. And I know it sounds weird or feels kind of like hokey, but let me give you an example. There's a demo video I used for several years where it was a tight shot of me on stage speaking and just different cuts and clips of me speaking at this event. And so sometimes I'd show it to people and I said, hey, how many people are in that room? And all you could see the entire video is me. So you have no idea, right? You'd get all kinds of guesses, right? Well, there's actually 3,000 people in the room. But like, you just don't know. There could have been 0, it could have been a dozen, it could have been 1,000,000. You just have no idea because all you see is me. And so again, if you're recording in an empty room, it feels weird, because you're just kind of talking into the ether, but it can be effective and that can work, especially in that chicken egg situation where I know I don't need this forever. I have an event coming up in 6 months that I know is going to be great, but I don't want to wait 6 months. Like I want to take action today. I want to start to build momentum now. And so that can be a good version 1.0.
How long should a demo video be and what should be included in it? Is it like great quotes or movement? I like the idea of filming it at like on stage at a church in between, mass or something, right? Where you get the stage, you have that feel, you're dressed up nicely, good first impression. But like, what are we filming exactly and how long should it be?
So in that context, though, you want to make sure, again, that you are filming in the type of setting where you'd want someone to hire you. Okay. So a mistake sometimes speakers would make is if they are filming in a church, but they're not trying to get booked in a church. Because remember, an event planner, a decision maker is watching that going, would I hire them? So another example would be there was a lady I saw who put out a video and she was trying to get booked to speak to corporations and like associations. And the demo video was her speaking to like elementary students and middle school students. And so you can see like, okay, you're a speaker. I can tell that you're a good speaker, but I'm watching this demo video trying to decide if I would hire you. And there's just a disconnect between what I'm watching and what I'm considering hiring you to do, right? So again, that's where it's important to make sure that you are filming in the type of setting where an event planner, decision maker is watching that going like, I could totally see them speaking at our event and they would be really, really good. So in terms of like the length and some details here, is think about like your own attention span for video. You know, like if I were
5
to,
seconds.
if that, right? So like if someone sends you a video,
Those people are watching us for,
Yeah. We're in way too deep at this point. But when someone like sends you, oh, dude, you got to watch this video, right? Like the first thing we do is we scan to the corner and we see how long is this video. And if it's more than a couple minutes, even that is just like, you don't like me. Why did you send this to me? You know, I thought we were friends. And so an event planner, decision maker, they're typically not going to be saying, hey, I have a half an hour, 45 minutes to watch your full talk, right? What they're most likely doing is they're considering hiring you and probably 3, 4, 5 other speakers. And so they're going to watch 30, 60 seconds, couple minutes of multiple speakers to quickly narrow down. So it's again kind of like the movie trailer. I don't need to see the entirety of 10 different movie trailers to determine which one I'm most excited about. Probably see about 30, 45 seconds of a couple of them and be like, yeah, I've seen enough, you know, or some that you're like, I want to see it. Is there another trailer of this? Because that looks really good, you know? And so in this, what you want to do is I would give like your full 30-minute, 45-minute talk and figure out like what's the absolute best content within that. What's the best of the best of the best? Because again, the goal is to make people want to see more. When you're presenting something, also keep in mind that if you're taking let's say a 45, 30-minute talk, you're boiling it down to, let's say 2 or 3 minutes, just like a movie trailer. Keep in mind that nobody has seen your entire 45-minute, 60-minute talk. So you may say like, oh, this punchline kills every single time. And so I got to include this punchline to the story or this joke in here. But if there's no setup that's in the video and someone's watching, it's like, I see people laughing. I don't get it because I wasn't in the room. That doesn't work. So you want to make sure that all of the context is correct for what's actually being included in the demo video. Now, one of the things that you mentioned there is, should I include, you know, quotes or testimonials or B-roll of me kind of prepping backstage or something like that? Like some of that is okay. But at the end of the day, what someone's hiring you for is to stand on stage and speak. And so sometimes I see speakers who they have this kind of hype video.
Yeah, like WWE intro.
Yeah. Like there's all this stuff that shows all these like bells and whistles and like media appearances and, you know, meeting and greeting people. But there's very little of them actually speaking. And like, that's the thing that people are hiring you for. So you can have a little bit of the like seasoning and spices there, but like the core meat should be you speaking.
Yeah. I think we're getting hungry. We're talking about crock pots.
Man, let's go barbecue, baby.
We're going to have some barbecue soon. No, I definitely want to make sure we cover, before we finish up, how to acquire speaking gigs.
Yeah.
There's a number of different routes that I know about, like filling out an application, but I know it's a lot more than that. I mean, tell me about the validity of that for a person who's just starting out, who literally is like 0 presentations in their resume. Do they even stand a chance, and what would help them stand out? But what are the other means and ways that people can go and actually get on these stages?
Yeah. And so again, like one of the things we touched on there is just being much more proactive than reactive. So certainly we hear stories of people who are going, yeah, I just, I built my website and then this led to one thing. And then all of a sudden, I was on Oprah and wow, here I am. And I've never had to do anything. It's like, that's great for like the fraction of a percent that happens to. It's just not the case for most people, The way that I can speak to myself personally and what we've seen from a lot of speakers that we've worked with is the high majority of the gigs that I got is because I asked for them. Meaning like I found an event that was having speakers. I'm not trying to convince them to hire a speaker. They're already planning on hiring a speaker. I'm just showing them why I am a good fit. So in the same way, let's go back to the example of, we've been talking about barbecue, right? We're continually getting ourselves hungry here. Let's say that the barbecue place we're going, somehow magically they catch wind of this. They show up, they're like, hey, we heard you guys are looking for barbecue. We got a place around the corner. They're not trying to convince us that we should get barbecue. We're already planning on having barbecue. They're just showing like, hey, here's why we're a good fit, right? Yeah. And so let's say with like your Pokemon conference, if I reach out to you and I say, Pat, we're buddies, and man, I have the best marketing speech that I think you would, marketing, team building, customer service, and leadership. I think this is perfect. You may be like, that has complete irrelevance to our audience and what it is, right? But if I said like, and again, I know squat about Pokemon here, so play along. But if I said, dude, I know everything about, we're going to edit something in here, fill in the blank here, some type of thing. You may be like, oh, okay, like this is perfect for our audience. This would be a great fit. Then again, I'm not trying to convince you about something that you Like, you already know that this is true. You know what it is that you are looking for. The other thing I would say is when you are reaching out, a mistake that sometimes speakers will make is we try to immediately go into pitch mode. Hey, I saw that you're having this conference. Let me give you my 10 reasons why you should hire me. And here's my resume, and here's my website, and here's all my videos. Like, nobody's going to look at any of that, right? So one of the things you want to do here is it's like you're trying to start a conversation. So when I reach out, if I send an email or a LinkedIn message to an event planner or decision maker, I'm keeping it really short, like 2 or 3 sentences. Hey, came across your event. I saw that you're having Card Party next year in Tampa. I'm curious when you'll start reviewing speakers for that event. That's it. Because I'm also trying to make it really easy for you to reply to.
Yeah.
Because if I'm giving you some 10 paragraph thing, you're not going to read it. You're not going to respond to it. But if I just say, like, when are you going to review speakers? It's real easy for you to be like, October, and just it could be a 1-word answer. Because at that point, now we've started a dialogue, and I can say, hey, do you mind if I follow up with you in October? Because you're going to say, sure, because you don't think I'm going to actually do it. So when I do, I'm kind of giving you a teaser of like, hey, this is what it's like to work with me. Like, I'm on top of it. I'm on my game here.
Yeah, very
so
good.
You're trying to plant a lot of different seeds there, and then be intentional with the follow-up. Because another mistake speakers will make is just say like, okay, well, when October rolls around, I hope you think of me. And you're not going to, because like life has happened between now and then. And so I want to try to stay top of mind with you by finding out when your next step is and then basing my next step on that.
That's great. Yeah, the fortune is in the follow-up for sure. How much validity is there for a speaker to go, you have room for me? I'll talk for free. I'll do it for free because I just want reps.
Yep.
Is that a valid strategy or is that selling yourself short?
Yeah. So I think that speaking for free can get a bad rap. And I think ultimately, like, a couple things I would say is, one is you're running a business. You have to treat this like a business. But having said that, it's okay to speak for free as long as you know why you're doing it. Don't just do this out of the goodness of your heart. Like, if we were all independently wealthy and we love speaking, we might be like, yeah, I don't need to get paid. This is just fun, right? But again, you're running a business. You're providing something of value. You need to receive something of value in exchange. But that value that you receive can look a lot of different ways. So an example would be, like you said, maybe we touched on this a little bit earlier. Maybe you're just working on some new content and I just want to get better. The way you get better as a speaker is you speak. The way you get better as a podcaster is you podcast. So I'm looking for opportunities and at bats. I know I'm not amazing, but I know I'm not awful, and I'm going to provide value and do a good job for your audience. So I may be willing to speak at something just for the reps. I may be willing to speak at something because I know the people in the room, and if I can get in front of those people, maybe they're event planners or decision makers, and they may be interested in hiring me for something. Maybe I have some type of product or service, and so it's less about what type of check I do or don't get in that moment, and more about if I can get in front of these people and they hire me for coaching or consulting or buy my course or book or program, that may be worth way more than what I may or may not be paid in that event. It may be worth it from a travel perspective. Like, I'll give you an example. A mutual friend of ours was invited to speak at something in Europe several years ago, and they had a smaller budget. And he's like, I don't know if this is worth it. And I said, no, let's negotiate with him for some additional travel. And so, long story short, they paid for he and his wife to go over to somewhere in Europe and paid for several additional nights of hotel and meals, and like basically covered all their travel. And he said, hey, all of a sudden I got this European vacation out of it, and so there was value that didn't show up in the form of a check for him, but it still was something that was like, yeah, that was totally worth it, that provided value in a different way.
Nice. I know that in my experience, most of my talks have come as a result of relationships that were built ahead of time and also performing on those stages. And I know a lot of these event directors and decision makers, like, they all talk to each other.
Yeah.
How can one show up when they do get their first talk to give them the likely chance that they will get hired again, that they'll be talked about, that they'll be shared? It's been the best thing to almost overperform so much that they can't help but recommend me to others. How do you show up in that?
Yeah, well, table stakes is you absolutely have to crush it on stage, right? And you need to show up prepared. And like we talked about earlier, not just I'm going to just kind of go through the motions and scribble a couple of ideas on a napkin and wing it and hope it all works out. But I'm really going to take the time to understand the audience and put together a well-crafted, well-designed presentation and talk. Whether it's a main stage thing or a small breakout with 10 people, I'm going to do it with excellence. So that is first and paramount. But the other part of it is it's being really good to work with off stage. And so let me give an example. If we have back home here, we have a drainage issue in our backyard. So we had a landscaper come out, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago or something. And we had to get a couple quotes for it. And initially we were trying to get quotes for it. And we called so many landscaping places. And like, it was so hit and miss of people who would either, hey, we'll be there on Tuesday, and just nobody would show. Or we'll be there this time, and then they're 2 hours late. Or they'd come by and like, I'll get you a quote next week, and you'd never hear from them. And you'd call someone just in the, hey, can I just get someone to come out? And no one would answer your call. And it was just like, I'm trying to give you money and you won't do this, right? All right. So eventually we find this guy. He comes out. We get a couple quotes out. And this guy, this one particular guy happened to be the priciest, but he was just the easiest and best to work with. He did what he said he would do. I'm going to be there at this time. And then he'd come out there, give me 30 minutes in my truck here, and I'm going to have a quote for you. And he pulls out the quote, and it was just great to work with. So fast forward since then, we had another drainage issue, right? And then we've had apparently some irrigation leak. And so we still have a drainage issue, fast forward, right? And so I've worked with this guy on a couple different things. So he calls me this morning and super, super nice, down to earth. And he said, hey, we're going to have to come back out there. Here's what we're going to do to fix it. If you got your own irrigation guy, that's fine. But if you want to work with me, I said, no, even though we've had some frustrations in this, I'd rather work with you because you just are going to do what you say you're going to do. So from a speaker standpoint, part of what you got to do is be great on stage. And part of what you got to do is just be really, really good to work with. So when the event planner, decision maker sends you an email, don't take 3 days to respond. When there's a sound check, like be early, don't show up late. When the conference is going on, like participate in the conference, be around, attend different sessions, show up at the mixers and the meet and greets and things, just like be part of the conference. When your session is over, don't hide away in your hotel room. Like find the event planner, decision maker. Hey, thank you so much for letting me be here. Is there anything else I can do to help or support you? Anything that you need from me? Those little things go such a long way. And again, like I said in the landscaping example, like the product is great, even though we've had some hiccups with the product, but I'm going to keep going back to that guy because I just know I trust that guy and I know he's going to be really, really good to work with.
Grant, this has been so amazing. I think it's going to be a great first start for a lot of people who are getting into the speaking world. So thank you so much for this. Where can people go to check out the Speaker Lab and the things that you have going on there to help people go deeper with this?
Yeah. So if you listen to this podcast, you probably listen to other podcasts. So we have a podcast by the same name, the Speaker Lab Podcast, which again, you've been a guest on multiple times. We recorded right before this. So make sure you check out that episode. We talk deep about the behind the scenes of Card Party. And that's pretty fascinating. So definitely check that episode out there. We got a book called The Successful Speaker, 5 Steps for Booking Gigs, Getting Paid, Building Your Platform. And so that Speak framework that we talked about, we go way more in depth in that. So definitely check that out. And we also have a variety of resources over at thespeakerlab.com/SPI. So thespeakerlab.com/SPI. Check that out.
Thanks, Grant. Appreciate you.
You bet, buddy.
You ready to eat?
Let's go.
Let's go eat. All right. I hope you enjoyed that interview and conversation with Grant. Grant, you can find at thespeakerlab.com. Family man. He's a pilot. He is just such a good human being, and he is an inspiration to me, and I love everything he does. And so check him out, especially if you need some help speaking. Again, thespeakerlab.com. We'll have all the links and everything over at the show notes page at smartpassiveincome.com/session821. Again, smartpassiveincome.com/session821. And you can hear me on his podcast, The Speaker Lab. And Grant's just a great guy. Cannot wait to meet up with him again. And we actually had a long conversation at a barbecue place right after this in-person conversation and recording. It was a barbecue place nearby in Tennessee, and it was amazing. But I was also amazed at what he was teaching me with regards to flying a plane and the apps that he uses and how it all works. And it's just fascinating. Nathan Barry, I know, is a pilot as well. And Nathan and Grant kind of share tips and inspiration with each other as well. So anyway, Grant, thank you so much. Thank you for listening all the way through. I appreciate you. Hit up the show notes page again one more time, smartpassiveincome.com/session821. And I look forward to serving you in the next episode. Cheers. Take care. I love you. You're awesome. Thank you so much for listening to the Smart Passive Income podcast at smartpassiveincome.com. I'm your host, Pat Flynn, sound editing by Duncan Brown, and our executive producer is Matt Gartland. The Smart Passive Income podcast is a production of SPI Media and a proud member of the Entrepreneur Podcast Network. Catch you next week. More people dream about building their own business and being their own boss rather than retiring early. But a majority of them never even take the first steps to register the business. Why? Because starting a business can feel overwhelming. With legal forms, paperwork, finances, it's a lot. And that's where Taylor Brands comes in. Taylor is a complete business builder designed to make launching your business simple and stress-free. You can register your LLC in just minutes, keeping your personal and business assets separate from day one. And from there, you can get access to everything you need to get off the ground, from legal documents, licenses and permits, invoicing and bookkeeping tools, and even a 100-day business coaching program to help you hit the ground running. You'll also get a free personalized business plan, branding tools, and so much more. And of course, our listeners get an exclusive 35% discount to get started. Just head to taylorbrands.com/SPI. That's TAILORBRANDS.com/SPI. Stop dreaming, start building with Taylor Brands. Hey, fellow podcaster, does this sound like something you've experienced? Record your podcast episode on one platform, download the files, edit in another app, then fire up a different tool just to create these social clips. Well, it can be clunky, time-consuming, and frankly overwhelming, especially for creators trying to grow. And that's why I'm excited to tell you about Riverside. Riverside is the all-in-one platform. Record, edit, and repurpose your podcast content all in one place. You just log in, record with your guests no matter where you are in the world, and just like that, studio-quality audio and high-resolution video. We use Riverside here at SPI as well now. With built-in AI, I can automatically clean up my audio, saving myself so much editing time, and it can even auto-generate clips to make promoting the show a breeze. And with Magic Clips, I can grab the best moments and repurpose them as short-form video, perfect for YouTube Shorts, TikTok, or Instagram, without re-recording a thing. So if you're tired of juggling tools and want a faster, simpler way to create and scale your content, it's time to try Riverside, built by creators for creators. Just go to smartpassiveincome.com/Riverside and use code SMART to get 1 month free on the Pro plan. That's smartpassiveincome.com/Riverside, promo code SMART.